It's time to meet your mentors.
Oh, want a little bit of, and a little bit of.
Hello, everybody. This is KCSB FM in Santa Barbara, 91.9. I'm Keon, and you are listening to Meet Your Mentors, where we talk with faculty and staff here at UCSB about who they are, what they do, and life at UCSB. Today, I am here with Dr. Phil Lubin from the physics department here at UCSB. Thanks for being here, Professor.
Oh, yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Ken.
Yeah, no problem. So I just wanted to get into this really quick. You got your Bachelor's of Science at Berkeley in physics and mathematics, and then you went and got your PhD at Harvard. Well, you started your grad studies at Harvard, and then you finished them in Berkeley with a physics
That's
PhD.
correct. Yep.
Great.
Yep. Total nerd.
Well, it's for a good cause.
No redeemable social qualities. Just torment students for a living.
Exactly, yeah. And speaking of tormenting students, Physics 3 and Physics 128 AL are your classes, right?
That was recently. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, among many others, but yes,
So Physics 3 is your intro calculus-based physics class. It's the third in the series of 4, right?
There can be a fifth as well for some people.
Okay. And what does that cover briefly?
Basically, fundamentals of physics, thermodynamics, mechanics, electromagnetism, and, a little bit of quantum mechanics in the fifth sequence, some modern physics relativity, and, we just generally try to mix it up and tell students about the physical world around them and, how to think about it in a very quantitative fashion. It is a calculus-based course, so it's not qualitative, but it's good. Yeah. Most students hate it, but it's great.
Yeah. And then Physics 128 AL is your advanced lab. I was wondering, what do you have students do in the lab?
Well, it's a combination of sort of canned experiments that we have, modern physics experiments, looking at things like cosmic rays come in, various kinds of electromagnetism optics, and, measuring the properties of electrons, et cetera. So there's quite a few experiments. We look at nuclear magnetic resonance, kind of relevant to things around you in your everyday life and things that the students might be exposed to when they go into industry or academia. And that's fun. And then I also take some of the students who are particularly interested in doing novel things themselves and give them some freedom to explore. So if they've always wanted to, build a starship or, do something, unusual, which I have had students, usually when I first go in the class, I'm maybe a little bit different than some professors, but I go and say, tell me what you really want to do in life. And they say, I just want to, go to school, blah, blah, or, get a job. No, what do you really want to do? Okay, I want to start a rock band, on Mars, or, I had some students say I want to be a starship captain, Now we're really getting into, what they want to do. For those students, then I open it up and say, well, let's find something unique. So some students study avalanches, build all kinds of wacky apparatus. So it's fun.
The physics of apparatus, or avalanches, how they fall, basically?
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, because it's a flow problem. You have particles, in the form of a combination of distribution of, snow particles and some liquid that freezes. And it's really a very, very complicated situation. But they were studying it with little styrofoam balls, trying to mimic avalanche. It was great. Students were very into it. It was terrific.
Very cool. That's a great project.
I like it. Yeah, I love it when students are passionate.
Yeah.
That's really what I just, that's the part I live for in life.
Yeah.
In terms of being a professor, I just love passionate students who want to learn.
Yeah. And last but not least, before we get to our first song break, what can we find Dr. Lubin doing in his free time when he's not in the lab or on the university campus? Does he have free time?
Yeah, not much of it, really. I do a lot of work when I'm not on campus for campus. I'm constantly writing, calculating, making up all kinds of plots and stuff. So, kind of an uber nerd. When I was younger, I used to love to go snow camping and skiing and just getting outdoors. I used to surf a lot when I was younger, motorcycle racing, and lots of things that were fun. But as life wore on, you just have more and more responsibilities. So, enjoy it while you're young, because it's not always that way.
Yeah. Mammoth?
No, I would actually pretty much go by myself. I'd hike up into the mountains, Yosemite or mountains near Los Angeles or all over, and I'd go by myself in the middle of winter, go snow camping, take out my snowshoes and my cross-country skis, and just disappear.
Wow.
Kind of an introvert at heart, so I would just, I love being alone. It's just nice.
Adventurous.
Yeah, I like that part.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, we're going to take our first song break right here. We're with Dr. Phil Lubin from the physics department here at UCSB. We'll be right back very shortly.
This is my conquering song, laid on a wave so strong, but the broke down life far too long. Well, this is my conquering song, where only my love survives. A long crawl to the tide, all else at the door be denied. Only my love survives. This is my thankful song for all that has been and gone, for the spirit of the eternal drum. Well, this is my thankful song, where only my love survives. A long crawl to the tide, all else at the door be denied. Only my love survives. Only my love survives. A long crawl to the tide.
Hey everyone, we're back. This is KCSB FM in Santa Barbara 91.9. I'm here with Dr. Phil Lubin from the physics department here at UCSB. So we're getting into the research aspect of the show, and from what you have told me, your main body of research is in early universe studies and the Big Bang, and that's what you've done with the majority of your time here at UCSB. So how early do we know about at the beginnings of the universe?
Well, so a lot of this is based on observation and theory combined together, and so when you combine the two, you can make a more or less consistent model of how we think the universe evolved. I hate to use the word started because we really have no idea how the universe started.
Right.
But we do have some inkling and insight into how it evolved once it started. And we often refer to that as a sort of Big Bang theory, for lack of a better word. There's, of course, a nice TV show based on that name.
Yeah.
But we now observe the universe in quite a bit of detail, and we can make some very reasoned and quantitative predictions about how the universe would have evolved given certain initial conditions. And when we compare those to what we observe in the universe today, they match reasonably well, not precisely by any means, but they match quite reasonably. So we think the universe started about 13.8 billion years ago. We don't know why it started, how it started. We don't know if there was a before or if time itself was generated in the process. I mean, it's really a fascinating area. It's really just an amazing
philosophical topic there.
It is, yeah. There's a heavy amount, if you really look at it in detail, of philosophy, even theology, if you want to go in that direction.
Yeah.
And some of physics borders on I would say a belief system and some of it, because we don't understand a lot of it. The whole observations recently that the universe is not made of the stuff that we are made of in general. We're made of stuff on the periodic table. Atoms on the periodic table is what constitutes our body. and our physical world around us. But in fact, the universe itself does not appear to be dominated by things on the periodic table. There's other kinds of matter and energy, and we do not know what they are. So only about 4% of the universe is made of things that are on the periodic table, as far as we can tell from our best data at this time. And the other 96% is a combination of dark matter and dark energy. And at the moment in the evolution of our universe, dark energy seems to dominate the universe, and as far as we can tell, it will continue to dominate and to increasingly so dominate. And it looks like the universe will not recollapse. It will go on forever, which means that our fate is a rather dismal one. The stars will burn out, and the universe will just be this cold, desolate place. So if you're going to party, I would do it now rather than a trillion years from now, because it's going to be a pretty bleak environment. And that's, I think to a lot of scientists, that's not very satisfying.
Right.
Because scientists, in addition to being, just uber nerds, they also, I think, have a philosophical side. They like to see the universe as making, quote, sense.
Yeah.
And, why would our universe be destined to doom? And, in the current understanding, our universe literally is destined to doom, because all the stars are based on burning elements via fusion, and when those elements are burned to a certain point, then you can't fuse any further, and the stars all go out eventually. So then we're left with this bleak universe, and to many people, quote, doesn't make sense. But of course, why should the universe make sense? I mean, who says it should make sense? Who are we?
Yeah.
But still, I think it's very unsatisfying to most scientists.
Yeah. Well, I think there's nothing to worry about UCSB students making the most of their time. They're definitely partying.
Yeah, party now. Well,
yeah, while they can.
Do it for the next billion years or so. At least,
Yeah, they've got some time.
Yeah.
So you are currently working on a project called DEEP. It's your project, the Directed Energy for Interstellar Propulsion. That's the full acronym. And so you are currently in phase 2 of this program, and it is basically using electromagnetic acceleration, or electromagnetic means to accelerate low mass probes, right?
Yeah. So if you look at all the propulsion systems we have that are used to get off the Earth, the great rocket technologies that are used to take things to the International Space Station, took us to the Moon. Have taken probes far out into the solar system, to Mars, to Venus, et cetera, and soon we'll take humans to Mars. And those are all based on chemistry, and that chemistry hasn't changed very much, literally in 1,000 years. Now we've gotten more sophisticated rockets and much larger ones, but the basic chemical reactions have not changed much, and so it's not a technology which can grow very, very much.
And they're combustion and
it's just
fission reactions, right?
Well, so the chemical reactions, the things which literally you see, going off the launch pad, whether it's SpaceX or NASA or Russian or Chinese, rockets, or North Korean, whatever.
Those are in the news.
They're all basically the same kind of chemistry. You combine either a hydrocarbon fuel like kerosene and combine it with an oxidizer like liquid oxygen, and then you have a SpaceX engine.
Right.
Also, you had the same technology being used during World War II. And in Germany, the V2 rocket was based on kerosene and liquid oxygen. And, that was many years ago, and we still are using the same technology today. On the space shuttle, when it would go off, the 2 rockets on the side, called the solid rocket boosters, those were not liquid rockets. Those were based on solid chemistry, so it was aluminum mixed with other things. But the central rockets on the shuttle were a hydrogen-oxygen, so liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen combined together make water. Very green fuel.
Yeah.
Okay, and works really, really well. Could be somewhat dangerous. But, that's as far as we've gotten. Chemistry hasn't changed. So we're not going to get to the stars with chemistry.
Right.
So then you got to go up the ladder. What's better than chemistry? Well, then you go into nuclear energy, which is about 1 million times more energy per unit mass or so. And that seems like, well, that must do it. But that doesn't do it. So using nuclear fission is not going to get you to the stars in any reasonable time. And even using nuclear fusion, which is the fusing of elements together, versus fission, which is the breaking apart of nuclear material. Fusing is what is used in stars to create energy. fusion engines, which don't exist currently, but will someday. Even those, unfortunately, will not get us to the stars in any reasonable timescale. The problem is that the energy density is too low, even though we think of nuclear energy as having amazing energy density, and certainly compared to chemistry it does. But compared to the rest mass energy of those things that you're taking to the stars, it's actually less than 1% in an ideal fusion reaction. And in a typical fusion reaction, it's actually more like 0.1 or 0.01%. So it's a really hard game. So if you look at the physics that we know about today and you say, I want to get to the stars and I want to get there in, say, a human lifetime, you got to place some time scale on things. Okay, so the only two solutions that you're left with are either annihilation engines, which are antimatter engines, which we don't know how to make, luckily, because it would be an amazing weapon if you did. And the other is directed energy systems. And so we're in a phase 2 of a NASA program, as you mentioned, which was funded out of the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts Office, NIAC. And that is to look at the feasibility of getting to relativistic speeds, namely speeds that are approaching some fraction of the speed of light. We're trying to get to greater than 20% of the speed of light. And it would allow us to get to the stars and the near stars in about 40 years or so, between 20 and 40 years, depending on the program. In order to do so, what we would do is basically just propel the spacecraft by light. So a very, very strong, very high power flashlight, if you will. But that's the basic idea: is use light itself, which travels at the speed of light, to bounce off a mirror, and then you propel that mirror away from you. The same way, if you take a hose and you shoot the hose at a ball, the ball will take off. So it's very simple to think about. The problem is, how do you produce a light source which is powerful enough and focused enough to propel a spacecraft to a reasonable fraction of the speed of light? And hence, that's our program. We started working on this about 9 years ago, about 8-9 years ago. And finally, it started to come to fruition. Initially, we started looking at planetary defense as an option for using directed energy. And directed energy is just a term which really, in our case, means a high-power laser. Yeah. But it also works really well for defending the Earth against asteroids and comets. We've produced more than 20 papers on that. But it's the only solution I can think of at the moment that's practical to allow us to achieve interstellar capability in order to get spacecraft up to a reasonable fraction of the speed of light, which is what you need to do if you're going to get to the stars in a reasonable time. So the nearest stars are the Alpha Centauri region, which is a little over 4 light years away, which is about 250,000 times the distance of the Earth from our sun. So it's
it's a distance away.
It's a long ways away, yeah. So that's the problem. The stars are very, very distant. But we now know, based on a number of data sets, in particular the Kepler mission, which is a NASA mission, that the number of planets per star is about 1, which is an amazing revolution in our knowledge, that there are an enormous, literally billions of billions, probably close to 100 billion planets exist in our galaxy alone. And there are about 100 billion galaxies in the universe. So you can just kind of
imagine how many planets there are.
Yeah, it's just a phenomenal number. And that's a revolution in our understanding, and that's only occurred within the last, sort of 15 to 20 years, that we've realized that planets are not unique to our solar system at all, but in fact are quite ubiquitous. And the number of about 1 planet per star is just mind-blowing. And when I was a graduate student, I thought that planets were extremely rare, that there probably were very, very few planets out there. That's completely wrong. Planets are very common now. You see in the news, every once in a while we just found 7 more planets around some star, and now we know that there's a planet in the nearest star, which is called Proxima Centauri. It's part of the Alpha Centauri region. So the Alpha Centauri region, actually 3 stars. There's the closest one's called Proxima Centauri. So there is now at least 1 planet in that region, and likely there will be more discovered. But the planet that was just announced in August now allows us to have a target, which is relatively close by. But within, say, 10 light years of the Earth, there are, of order maybe 100 planets or so that we know about. or that we surmise there are out there. So there's a lot of targets to go to, and we'd love to visit an exoplanet. Anyway, there's a lot wrapped up there. There's a lot of different thoughts, but our basic goal is to see, can we indeed go to an exoplanet? Can we visit the stars in a reasonable lifetime, the human lifetime? And if we can, what does that mean for humanity? Suppose that we develop the ability, this is a very difficult program. It's not a couple-year program that will come to fruition. It's probably something that will happen in your lifetime, not mine, but in your lifetime. But if we do develop this technology, which does allow us to then visit the nearest stars and exoplanets associated with the stars, what does that mean for humanity? And it opens up a lot of possibilities. In addition to going there and visiting, we could transport things there. In our program, we're not focused at all on transporting humans to exoplanets. The same program can be used to transport humans rapidly inside our solar system. That's of interest. But we don't really have an interest in sending humans to the stars. The reason is that humans are very high maintenance. And you probably have some friends who are higher maintenance than others. We need a lot of food. We can't really go into hibernate mode very well. We don't know how to do that yet. We're very bulky. Most of our body is useless. Probably some of your friends are more useless than others. And we're really not designed. You're not really ideal creatures for going
travel.
out for interstellar travel.
Especially when it's at relativistic speeds where time acts differently, and then there's that whole, time passes slowly for them while it passes quickly, or relatively quickly for us.
Well, yeah. So that actually works in our favor. If you're a science fiction fan, you like to go to the Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever science fiction movie you happen to favor. It's great. They punch a button and hit the warp speed, and out they go, and then they come back again, and things are basically as they left them. But that's different. That's inconsistent with our currently known physics.
Yeah.
So if we were to go to, say, Alpha Centauri, which is a little over 4 light years away, and if we were to go at the speed of light, on the Earth clock, it would take 4 years to get there, about 4.5, and another 4.5 to get back. So it'd be about 9 years later when you got back, according to the clock in the studio.
Yeah.
But on your watch, as a person going to Alpha Centauri, you could be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And your watch says, I've only been gone for 5 minutes, and you're like 9 years older. Well, extend that out, indefinitely. You can travel wherever you want in the universe, in theory, at high speed. And on your watch, i.e. the person traveling, the time would progress. You'd get there quickly. It wouldn't take very long for you to get there. But when you got back to the Earth, the time would be much, much later. So let's say you wanted to go to the nearest galaxy. The nearest large galaxy is Andromeda, which is about 2.5 million light years away. So in theory, if you go fast enough, you can get to Andromeda as quickly as you want on your watch, not the Earth watch, on your watch. But then when you came back to the Earth, it would be a minimum of 2.5 to get out there, 1 million years, and 2.5 million years to get back. It would be 5 million years later. So you could say to your professor, hey, I just got to take a quick, break. Do you mind if I use the restroom during the final? And you come back, and it's 5 million years later. Said, oh, that was awesome, right? And then my final's over, right? Grades are turned in. In fact, the faculty member is long dead.
Yeah.
So it could work in your favor. But anyway, so.
What a trip that would be.
That would
5
be
million years later.
Yeah, that'd be a trip. Even Timothy Leary would have had a trip.
Yeah, he
talking
would have
about that. Yeah.
Most deaf.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're here talking with Dr. Phil Lubin from the physics department at UCSB. We'll be right back here on Meet Your Mentors.
I'm not going over. Tell myself I'll just drive around. Drive fast, crash into your arms. Feels faster with the windows down.
All right, we're back here on Meet Your Mentors with Dr. Phil Lubin from the physics department at UCSB. This is our last segment of the show. So, Professor, quickly, do you have any advice to students and maybe a story to share?
Sure. Yeah. So my best advice really is don't be a lemming. And lemmings, lemmings get such a bad rap. I mean, I honestly don't have a lemming for a pet, so I'm sorry. Apologize to all the lemming lovers of the world. But, most students just follow other students because why? They just want to follow the crowd, as is commonly said. But it's such a mistake. And I'll tell you a story, and then I'll just explain why I say that. And I'm rather dismayed when I look around campus sometimes and see the kind of nonsense that goes on when people have no idea, what they're doing. Why are you doing that? Well, I don't know. That's what they told me to do, or that's what my friends are doing. Well, think for yourself. Actually read. You're at a university. You're supposed to be thinking. You're supposed to be trying to understand reality, not just follow someone's advice, and including mine. Go out and read, think. Try to understand for yourself. And I think one of the great tragedies of just in general people, but certainly universities these days, is that the people are just lemmings. They follow whatever the crowd is, and typically you see this in politics. Students just follow whatever let's riot today. Well, I don't know, what are we going to riot about? It doesn't matter. Let's just riot today.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, right? So I lived in Berkeley for many, many years. It was great fun. I just loved going out and seeing what the latest riot was. And I remember having these wonderful conversations with the Spartacus Youth League, which I don't even know if it exists anymore, but they were so much fun. They're sort of a socialist, communist, youth league, and I would go up and talk to them, and I'd say, do you know how many people, Stalin was responsible for murdering? They said, oh, no, it's all, a capitalist, story, blah, 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 some crazy line that they would tell me. And I'm not saying this because I have one, political opinion versus another. This is an example of just lemmings. They had no idea what they were talking about. They had no historical facts. All they understood was they swallowed some magic pill, which was brought to them by some magic book. And I remember in Berkeley, Mao's Little Red Book was hanging out. You could get these all over the place. And I would go and I'd talk to the Maoists. Do you know how many people, Chairman Mao was responsible for murdering? They had no idea, no concept. What's the difference between fascism and communism? What's the difference between isms? And most of the people would say, oh, those are fascist pigs. But you'd go over and talk to the communists, the Stalinists, the Maoists, the whatever-ists, you would find that they're basically the same thing. They're all just complete idiots. They're just lemmings. And it would really bug the crap out of me. I had a number of intense discussions, which I would treat it with humor. I love to talk to students and use some humor. Think for yourself. Don't be a lemming. Go out there and read something about history. Not everybody was an idiot. When they were younger. These people that are older now actually have probably had a life. They might have done stupid things when they're young, but maybe there's a reason for that. So think for yourself, and when you do think for yourself, you find the world is actually quite an interesting place, and you'll find that you actually can have an opinion of your own and not just be a lemming and following the rest of the crowd.
Great. Good advice.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, great to meet you, Keanu.
Yeah, great to meet you too. Thank you for coming on the show, Professor.
Thanks a lot.